listeners, Kathy Lawless, Life Story Curator, bringing you this podcast series, How Did I Get Here? A series of interviews designed for people just starting out in their careers, in transition, or possibly stuck, giving them access to stories of people who's already been in their careers, so they've already started out, and maybe they've been through transition or they've been stuck. Today we're talking to Rob Ham, principal and owner of Rob Ham Marketing Communications. Hi, Rob.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
Well, I'm so excited. Rob and I met through the Strategic Connections networking group.
Right.
And he's got a fascinating story. But as usual, listeners, we're going to start with the icebreaker questions so we get to know him a little bit more before we jump into what he does and how he got there. So, Rob, why don't you tell us where you grew up, how many siblings, where you were in the birth order, and how that kind of influenced who you are today?
Sure. Well, I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada, but quickly moved to Casper, Wyoming. So that's where that's where I grew up. So I grew up in Casper, Wyoming, as the third youngest of three brothers. So I have two older brothers, and it definitely influenced me because, as they would say, I was spoiled and got everything that I wanted, but I also was very kind and was very easygoing and very positive about everything because life was good for me.
Yeah. So what was the age difference?
2 years to my middle brother and then 5 years to my oldest brother. So my middle brother and I went to high school together, which was really nice.
So you might be a little closer to
Yeah, and they always stuck out for me, so I got that benefit too, that people have always been very kind to me, and I got that from my brothers too, because they were always looking out for me.
They weren't bullying you?
No, well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. There's times that we definitely got into it, and I was, like the one that got his head stuck in the toilet or something, or, they were making fun of me all the time, but they did do a lot of work for me, and again, very looked out for me quite a bit.
Yeah, well, very cool. What kind of sports did you play, or was it musical instruments, or kind of what were you?
Everything in between. So I definitely played sports. I played football as a younger person, through my elementary and middle school years, and I also played basketball. And then I also ran track. So those were the sports side. And then once I got into high school, I started more into theater and speech and debate and those types of things. So I got drawn more to the arts when I got into high school.
And when you got into high school. Mm-hmm. And then you grew up in Wyoming this entire time?
That's right. So high school in grew up in Casper, high school in Cheyenne, college in Laramie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the whole thing.
Do you speak any other languages?
I don't.
Yeah,
I should, but I don't.
Neither do I. I just always ask that because people surprise you with,
I took French all through college, but, un peu. Right?
Okay.
I know enough to get around in France, but that's about it.
On a different, kind of changing directions here, on a fun meter scale of 1 to 5, 1 being couch potato, 5 being life of the party, where would you put yourself?
Oh, God. Seriously? Like 9, 10, or 11. I love it. I love life. I love having fun. So.
Okay, and that could be part of the theater and stage.
Oh,
as well.
Yeah, sure. It's directly related to that, but directly related to how I grew up. Life was good. I'm very fortunate and very blessed, very grateful for that. I've had a really good life and have really great people surrounding me.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about your story. So, okay, one last icebreaker.
Sure. On
the risk meter scale of 1 to 5, where would you put yourself?
I just started a new business about 3 weeks ago. So, I don't know. Right now, probably risk meters probably about, did you say 1 to 5?
Yeah. You're just off the charts on all my scales.
No, risk meters probably about 4-ish because I'm being very smart about it. But I am taking a risk in doing this. But it's a calculated risk because it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time.
Interesting. That word calculated comes up, I think, especially from the folks who are more experienced. The word calculated comes up.
Oh,
and they go,
sure.
When I look back, I took more risks maybe than today.
Oh, absolutely. I started my career wanting to be an actor, wanting to be an artist, and that's, the success rate of being a professional actor is like 0.0001. I think it's higher in pro football.
Oh, wow.
To be a pro football player, maybe it's higher, but it's about the same, right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, so now that we know a little bit about who you are and how you grew up, Tell us what you're doing today as principal and owner of Rob Ham Marketing Communications.
Rob Ham Marketing Communications is me, but it's a whole lot more. It is all things marketing communications, full service, video production, branding, strategy, business-to-business marketing, social media, all of those things, using my expertise and others' expertise and talents in order to solve marketing communications problems for businesses and individuals.
Wow. So you
Yeah,
do
very
it all.
exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yes, very exciting.
So let's go way back then, and
Okay.
so we can figure out, how did I get here?
Right?
So
how did I get here?
You mentioned junior high school. You started getting into theater in high school and wanted to be an actor. So I'm guessing you didn't think marketing communications was where you were going to be when you grew up.
I did not. However, when I started college, I started as a political science major, wanting to go to law school and become a Supreme Court justice. That was how I started my college career. And quickly, I always loved the theater and I loved acting. And quickly, like after a year, I changed my major to theater and dance. And then I went into college and did all the rest of my college at University of Wyoming in theater and dance, and then went on to get my master's degree in acting. So I'm an actor, professional actor by education.
By education.
Yeah.
And after education, then, what was your first job?
So I moved to New York to pursue an acting career, which was awesome. It was really fun.
Because your choices were probably what, New York or LA?
New York or LA or Chicago, or doing regional theater.
But New York, you're drawn to New York.
Had jobs coming out of that, so smaller jobs coming out of that as an actor. But my first job where I was making money on a consistent basis was at the International Herald Tribune in New York, which is a newspaper, an international newspaper, and I was in distribution. And I got that job because one of my friends who I knew in college, or I had met in college, was living in New York, and he was working there, and he recommended me for the job.
Ah, okay. So you get a job so you can eat.
Yeah, so I can eat, so I can live, and so I can, and I made a decent living doing that. They actually wanted me, and, this was probably a clue into what I was doing. They wanted me to be the manager of distribution worldwide for the International Herald Tribune. So they actually they had offered to send me to Paris to live and to do this job. But I said, no, I want to be an actor. I don't want to take this sort of corporate job in media. And that should have been a clue into me that, hey, you know what? Maybe there's something else out there for me.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, no, I want to do this other thing. And, no regrets, but I definitely was... that was an opportunity that I said, oh, you know what? I'm not going to take this because I was headstrong in doing something else.
Yeah. So an opportunity presented itself, but you had a dream. So
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So then, did you have what were your first acting jobs then?
So I worked in. I was actually on a soap opera for a week.
Character
for a week. Yeah, I was a character. It was called The Guiding Light. I don't even know if it's still on. Right. I don't even know if it's still on, but I was Robbie the waiter in the Spalding Mansion. And so I was on there for a week and it was really fun. So that was one of the big known acting jobs I get. But primarily I focused on theater. And so I worked off-Broadway. That's about as far as I got. I never got to Broadway, but a couple of off-Broadway things. And definitely off-Broadway. And ultimately, what I started doing was writing and producing some of my own stuff. So when I left New York, ultimately, that's what I was doing. It was writing more. And in that interim, after I had left the International Herald Tribune and wanted to continue pursuing my acting career, I also still needed a job, so I went to work for Fox Television and the show A Current Affair, if you remember that.
Oh,
Ka-jung.
okay.
Kakung was their big thing. It was one of the first news magazines. So again, another clue into, hey, media, marketing media, but it was fun. It was fun. I worked during the O.J. Simpson trial, during the Joey Buttafuoco and the Long Island Lolita, during Waco. those are all the stories that we covered during that time. So it was really quite an exciting time for news magazines.
Yeah. So what were you doing? What was your role there?
I transcribed videotapes. If that gives any clue into how old I am. So I literally would write the words to a videotape of an interview, and then they would take the hard copy and they would edit it from the hard copy of what I had transcribed. So it was a great job for an actor because it was like 2 a.m. I would do that. So it was really fun.
So you could do it on your own hours?
Yeah, my own hours. And I worked with my best friend, and I worked with my girlfriend at the time, and I worked with all these great people. And we were all just a bunch of actors and directors and just doing the thing. And it was late at night and early in the morning. And so it was a perfect job for an actor. Mm-hmm. So, and it was quite lucrative too. I mean, in terms of what I could afford, what they were paying us.
Yeah. So, obviously you're not an actor today.
No,
so
although every once in a while.
So that job then led to what?
So after I left New York, because I got really sick. I'm a cancer survivor. And so I got really sick in New York. And so I wanted to, my parents and my family at the time were living in Colorado. And so I moved out here to do my treatments because I wanted to be closer to my family.
Well, I'm so glad you're a survivor.
Yeah, 22
Congratulations.
years. Yeah, 22, almost 23 years now. So it was quite devastating at the time, and I definitely.
So I'm guessing this is your 20s that this is.
30s. In my 30s
now is what's going on. Okay.
Yeah, so in my 30s. And again, living in New York on my own, no health insurance or anything. So I got very lucky, that I had a great support system around me in order to get me through that. And then came here because I had to go through a very intense treatment, a stem cell transplant, which was very experimental at that time. Today, it's very commonplace for cancer survivors or cancer patients to do stem cell transplants. But at the time, it was sort of a 50-50 whether I would live or die. So,
wow.
So I did that at University Hospital. So I'm always grateful to University Hospital for that treatment at that time. But that's what brought me back to Colorado. Mm-hmm. It was literally an interruption in my acting career because I got really sick. I tried to go back to New York and went back for a few months just to see if I could do it again. And it was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with my sort of pursuing of my acting career. The great thing is the last person I saw before I left New York was my current wife. So my current and forever wife, I guess I will say that about
current
Kathleen.
Makes it sound like for now.
No. But that was the extreme positive of that. If all things even cancer and everything had not happened, we would have never met. So I moved to Colorado and so I went through treatments for about 2 years. So that was like a 2-year process of doing that and not working and everything. And so just the recovery time from that. And so I didn't work, but ultimately I got married and then had a baby. And so with married and baby, and I was doing some acting and some writing and while I was here in Denver. So I've done theater and shows in Denver.
Okay.
In Denver, for sure. But ultimately, with a wife and a child, I had to get a job.
Yeah,
I had to make money to help support my family. I mean,
Kathleen
was working and everything, but with Mason and everything, we needed to be a 2-income family. And so I became, started as a temp and then full-time, a receptionist at a wonderful agency here in town called Karsh-Hagen. And I became the receptionist there. And
an agency as in marketing?
Advertising agency. So I just fell into it. Being an actor, being a receptionist was easy because I love people and I love to greet people. But that was sort of the thing, I just needed a job.
Yeah.
And I started as a temporary there and then that became full-time. And while I was sitting there, I started hearing about this thing called new business. That advertising agencies need new business or that businesses need new business, all of this stuff. And it was very intriguing. And so I started researching companies that I could bring into the agency. And ultimately, I became the director of business development for Karsh-Hagen at this big ad agency here in Denver. And so went from receptionist to director of business development.
That's a pretty big leap.
Well, because I had an acumen for it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I really was. Ultimately, I discovered that that's a great thing for me, that this sort of idea of business development and growing businesses and strategic directions was something that I just innately knew. And definitely connecting with people was something that I really loved. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the job description, right? Connect with people and connect with potential clients and connect with potential partners, whatever that is. And so that was, that's when all of this started. Everything that I'm doing now, that's when it really kind of took a leap into the business world. And then I ran a small agency for a while called Extra Strength Marketing Communications. And then I was a managing director there. I didn't own it, I ran it. And then always wanted to start my own agency, but during that time, we had a pro bono client at Extra Strength that was, we needed to do the branding and marketing for it, and it was called Urban Peak, which helps homeless young people or youth experiencing homelessness. And in doing the branding work, I had to interview the young people who were were experiencing homelessness. It was just part of the branding process. You interview the customers or clients, so to speak. Right? I know that sounds kind of funny, but so it was a nonprofit, and I was sitting in a room with 6 youth experiencing homelessness, and all of a sudden I said, "My God, I have to do something." I was a guy, I grew up in Wyoming. I was a guy who said, get a job to a young person on the street, and I didn't understand why they were homeless. I had never even seen a young person who was homeless in Wyoming. I didn't even know what that was. And so, and I'm sure that they're there, please. But sitting in a room with those young people, I said, I have to do something. And, I have a young son of my own, and so a marketing position at Urban Peak came open, and I went for it, and took a pay cut and stopped my other career as an advertising executive in business development and went and did this. And
a real pivotal moment for you.
So a very extreme pivotal moment for me, for my family, for everything. And when I did that, and it also, because of how I worked it out graciously with the person that was my supervisor at the time, it worked out to where I could spend more time with my son during that time while my wife was developing her career, so in her business. And so that was really helpful on that level.
So it worked well for the family, but
it
also
worked pretty well for the family.
Values.
From a financial standpoint, it wasn't as great, but from a time standpoint and everything, it seemed to work. And then after that, I took another leap into business development for a video production company, again going back into this sort of for-profit business development, and then quickly went back to be a development director, which is a fundraiser, professional fundraiser for another organization that helped high school kids who had dropped out of high school called Colorado Youth for a Change, incredible organization. And then from there went to the Mile High United Way as a major gifts, principal gift manager, director, and just dealing with high net worth donors and working with them in terms of the United Way and pursuing their gifts. And so that was the last thing that I was doing before a month or so ago. I said, you know what, I want to, at this point in my life, want to start my own thing and pull everything together that I've done in my life and start Rob Ham Marketing Communications, which is my own company, doing what I love, which is connecting with people, helping them solve their marketing communications issues or problems, or helping them do some creative work for them. And that's where I am now. Yeah.
Boy, as I'm sitting here absorbing all of this, I'm just, a big theme that keeps standing out is just this connecting with people, which you already said. I mean, because as an actor, you connect with your audience, right? Or even if you're a writer, you're connecting with there's all this connection. So
that's right. When I started this company, I had to ask myself, what is my biggest strength? What is my value? What value do I bring to everything? And ultimately what it was my ability to build relationships and to connect with people and the desire to connect with multiple people, with lots of people, because I just love people and their stories, same as you. I mean, I love their stories. I love to hear about them. I love to make friends. And so that, and not everyone, what I discovered is that not everyone wants to do that. They want to do what they're doing, whether that's doing graphic design, whether that's doing video production, whether that's doing accounting, whether that's doing engineering, whatever it is, they want to do that. And they don't necessarily want to build a relationship and a huge network of people that they can call on for whatever they need.
Yeah.
And that is my value. So I set up an organization or a company where that is my strength, is that I connect with the people and then I bring partners together in order to solve these marketing communications problems. So I work with a graphic designer, I work with who's one of my best friends, I work with a video production person who's one of my best friends.
I'm another
so
pattern.
And very extremely extremely experienced in these, in these areas, and then just building partnerships in order to do that. And from storytelling to public relations, whatever the communications need is, my role, because I've been in so many areas in public or in marketing communications, my role is to really plug in where it's needed, from project management to brand building to whatever it is. And then wherever I don't need to plug in, bring a partner in as the project allows. And really what I want to concentrate on is just building the business and connecting with people.
Yeah. And then you bring in the right expert or resources.
That's
as
exactly
needed.
it. That's exactly it.
It's interesting. I haven't heard you use the word sales at all. You use the word business development, but you really, I hear connections, relationship, finding out the needs. And it sounds like that's how you went from receptionist to director, right? Was you didn't look at it as sales. I mean, some people, I think, look at sales and they get very intimidated. There's so many stereotypes around that. It feels they don't have the confidence for that, but yet I didn't hear any of that.
Well, ultimately, we all have to make a living. We all have to bring resources into whatever our family or to ourselves so that we can move forward in our lives and ultimately help ourselves and help other people. I mean, that's really what we want to do. And we need resources in order to do that and use our talents in order to do that. If we continue to do that and do the things that we love and be kind to people and work with others and be kind to ourselves, then sales just ultimately comes. It's just, as one of my mentors, the owner of Carshagen Communications, Pocky Maranzino, said, nothing happens until something sells. He gets it. It's all sales. But sales is just a word. What I think of sales is business development, relationship building, helping someone else. That's really what sales is. And if we do that, then the result, the money, or helping other people, the getting young people off the streets or whatever that may be, that all comes.
Once you make that connection.
Once you make the connection, once you just are good to people and yourself, that it just comes.
So you mentioned that mentor. I mean, did you have role models that kind of guided you, or that you saw this and you went, oh, that's a unique way to do that? Or maybe because you came in from a non-traditional corporate way, right, that you just have a very different perspective on this than I think the average person coming up through corporate, maybe.
Well, I think ultimately you have to go back to your roots. I mean, whenever I think of mentors, and key people in my life, it first starts with my family. I mean, my dad, my mom, my brothers, they were all influential in my life and how to just live life. My best friend, who's an actor and a director, my other friends who are graphic designers, all my friends and these people in my life that are really close to me, I really consider them mentors and even my son, Mason, I mean, even him, he teaches me every day how either to be patient or what it means to be a young person again and what it means to have challenges and look forward in your life and enjoy life with ultimate opportunities in front of you. I mean, he teaches me every day about so many things. And so I really admire him, and he's a mentor for me. Mm-hmm. But from a business perspective, yes, the owner of Carshagen, Pocky Maranzino, although he may not say that he's a mentor for me, he absolutely was probably my lead mentor in the business world. He just got how to deal with people, and he got what was important in life, and he got how to be a great business person, how to be respectful, how to have integrity, how to be honest, how to make money doing what, and then that's
and
what he's in
all
business,
those other things,
and all those other things, and make a really. I mean, he is probably, in my opinion, the most successful agency in Denver and in Colorado. And I would love for my agency to be at least half of what he developed with that organization, and the owners, Phil Karsh and Tom Hagen. They were also great men too, and I'm sure he learned from them. I mean, other mentors, I'm just discovering a lot of great mentors in my life. Rob Cohen at IMA is a new mentor. Actually encouraged me to change my name from Robert to Rob and go by Rob now. So Rob Cohen is an outstanding person in this community, and has become, again, although he may not say it, he has become a mentor and an influential person in my life. And I've just connected with him just a few times. So it can even be the times that you just connect with somebody at a short-term basis. The CEO of Mile High United Way, Christine Pinheiro, she is definitely a mentor and a key person in my life. She has belief in me. She believed in me to bring me to one of the largest nonprofits in Colorado. I mean, United Way is probably one of the largest nonprofits in the world, but in Colorado, and she believed in me in order to have a very high position within the organization. And she's a dear friend, and so those are three of the key people in my life, along with ones that are just growing and people that I meet every day and are helping me with this business. They help me along with this business. It's just the incredible people that you meet along the way. It's really important, as no matter if you're in transition, if you're stuck, or if you're just starting out, to really value all of the relationships that you come across and that you have in your life.
Yeah, because you never know when your paths are going to cross again.
That's right. I remember hearing a story called "Always Tip the Pizza Guy," and it's just you have to give of yourself and make sure that other people are taken care of. You know, if the pizza guy is not very nice, then maybe not. But if they do a service for you, you have to always make sure that you help other people, because that's what feels good, and in turn that will come back to you tenfold. Which is really ironic because my son works for DoorDash, and that's it. So always tip him if he comes along.
It does come full circle. So when you look back on your career, obviously you had this medical, life-threatening event in your life. Right. Did it feel like a setback, or you probably just looked at it as, this is my number one priority here? So, and that just give you a different perspective on life. But were there other setbacks, or were you ever stuck?
Absolutely.
And feeling that, I'm never going to get that right thing, or were you chasing something, or?
Absolutely. I think it even started as when I was an actor in New York. I mean, talk about things where you ultimately are going up to audition for things all the time. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of auditions that you will not get, and you have no control over that. And at some points it feels like, oh my God, I'm no good. Why can't I do this? Why am I not successful? And you learn, and looking back, thinking that you're stuck, and looking back, you just go, there are so many things that I had absolutely no control over. And I can't, that's probably the lesson. I had no control over the fact that I got cancer. I really had no control over that. So that was a big life lesson. Well, when we learned, you would think that it was a setback. We can either look at things as a setback, we can look at them as bad, or we can look at them as good and just part of life. I mean, it really is. They say what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And it's really true if we look at it that way, that this is just something that happened to me in life. Then you are not stuck. If you're going through hell, keep going, right? And so you just keep going. And as long as we stay, as I've learned, as long as I stayed positive and knew that there was more to life than what was happening to me right now, and ultimately that I was never alone in anything that I was going through. Whether it was my family or whoever, even in times when I thought I was alone, I was never alone. If we come to that understanding, then it's so much easier to move forward. Stay positive, be good to yourself, help other people, know that you're not alone in this world, and just keep going and doing things, being productive.
Yeah.
So when you ask, was there ever a setback? Yes, at the time I look back and I go, yeah, that could have been a setback, but even the threat of death was not a setback. it was actually something that made me better.
I do think about, I need to maybe change that question, because I don't like the word setback, because it is all about perspective and how you view it, right? And that, my last interviewee was talking about losing her job at, she was president and CEO of a major organization. And, and so when we were talking about setbacks, and the first time it had happened to her, it was devastating, and yet totally out of her control. I mean, three networks had come together to even create the role, and then they decided that it wasn't working in some way and decided to divide it back up. So, it's interesting how we forget to look at things outside of our control, and we look at, what did I do wrong, or did I make a bad decision? I mean, it's a weird judging thing. It's that...
Well, because we go through life, and believe me, this is a long time of understanding this. We go through life saying, I want this, I want this, I want this. And if I don't get this, then that's bad. When in actuality, it's not really what I want. It's what life wants. And sometimes I get what I want, and that's awesome. And sometimes I don't. And that's awesome too, because it's just life. It's just life happening the way life is happening, and that is, it's a huge lesson to learn. This idea of acceptance and gratitude and all of those things are huge lessons to learn, that I would say come with age, but they can be learned anytime at any age.
Yeah, it comes with just experience, and I think it comes with going with life, and life happens to you sometimes. Like you said, like you didn't... Cancer choose you, and you didn't choose it, but it happened to you, and then therefore you had to deal with that. So
and then you discover, as a lot of people do, which a lot of admirable people do, that you find what you're passionate about, and you find what you love, and you just sort of go after that, and whatever happens, but that you stay true to yourself.
Yeah. So what was kind of your decision point or tipping point to actually leave? I mean, it sounds like you had this wonderful job at United Way. You loved it. You were connecting with people. You're in your strength. It sounds like you're in your zone. What then causes you to say, you know what, now this is the right time for me?
Well, there was a couple things. One was that I knew I had a passion for playwriting, and so I'm a writer. And so I knew I wanted to do that a little bit more. And while the Mile High United Way is an incredible organization, they don't get there just by sitting back. They get there with a lot of work and a lot of hard hours and a lot of wonderful people who are working very hard to help this community. And it's really incredible. So I, including the long hours of doing that, I said, I want more time to do that. I want more time to spend with my son and my family, my son particularly as he's going through his transition of becoming what he's going to be. And so I wanted to be available for that. Probably the biggest part, though, was I wanted something that felt like legacy, if I can use that word. Felt like something that I have built this and this is mine, and I feel I have some ownership over it. And it's not like I didn't have ownership over my job. You have to own your job and do the best that you possibly can at whatever you're doing. It's just that it was not mine per se. And that may sound a little egotistical, but it really was. I really have for a long time wanted to build a company that I could call mine. And my cohorts have built their own companies, just like you have built your own company. And I also didn't want to sell somebody else. I wanted to be the responsible one. I wanted to be the one that, hey, this is me and this is what I'm doing for me and my family and the world, I guess. So it was really about legacy and what I wanted to do. Because I'm at an age now where this is it. This is, at least in my mind, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to, ultimately, this is my second dream job, right? So this is a dream job where owning my own company, the ultimate, my dream job is to be a full-time writer. So this is, and it's as difficult to make a living at that as it is to be an actor or to be an artist or to be, so If I had to choose right now, I need to have a living. I want to build something. I wanted to do this for a long time, so I'll do that while I'm still writing. So I'm still writing quite a bit now, and this has really allowed me to be able to do that too.
Yeah, so it gives you more freedom, more flexibility in your schedule.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hear about writer's block, and it's hard to just sit down and do that. So what's your technique, or what's your trick to that?
Write every day.
Every day. So it's a
good, bad, or indifferent.
It's a habit.
I mean, we as artists, habit. As writers, we wait for inspiration. You know, that's the downfall. You just have to do it, just like everybody else. Just like professional football players get in the gym during off season. People that do great engineering, people that do great accounting, they do it every day. That's how you get really great at it. Mm-hmm. And even if no matter how it's going. And so as a writer, you just have to write. I had a good buddy who told me that when I was saying, hey, I want to be a writer. He said, I would think if you wanted to be a writer, you would write more.
Oh, so I said, that kind of
and I went, oh yeah, I guess so now I've gotten into the practice of writing every day. The practice of writing, public writing, like what I want to publish, what I want to produce, all of those things every day, which is different from because I write every day. I've written in a journal every day for the last 35 plus years. Every single day.
So you're a journal.
I'm a journal writer.
I mean,
that's sort of my meditation, how I take care of myself, how I get my thoughts down, how I deal with things, how I solve problems, is sort of journaling and going over my feelings. And because when you write them, then they become more manageable.
Yeah.
When you're able to write them. So I've been doing that forever in my life. But the real practice of writing something that is going to actually be expressed to other people, that's a new thing in terms of doing it every day.
Yeah.
And the other thing with doing that is that you get into the habit of saying, it doesn't have to be good. I can't judge it. I'm just doing it. I can't judge.
You just got to get it out.
Yeah. I can't judge whether it's good or it's bad, or I'm just doing it. And ultimately it's going to be finished, or I'm going to put it out there to the world, and that's what it is. You know, it may never be finished per se, but if I want to be a playwright, if I want to be a writer, then I have to write and I have to put it out there and not judge it so harshly as I had, because that's how people get stuck, is paralysis by analysis. They just wait for it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it's never perfect.
So is the journaling then what has helped you kind of get it out of your head? I mean, what has that little voice been for you kind of throughout your career? Because you talked about going on stage. I guess I would imagine that there's a little voice is rampant, right? And when you go to audition, and let alone
it's funny. It's funny. The little voice used to be really super critical, like this sort of, you're not good enough, or everybody else is better, or don't do that, it's too hard. All these sort of critical little voices. What's interesting is that the journal or the meditation or whatever it is, this sort of bigger thing, it was the bigger voice that was saying, hey, be good, be kind, be all these bigger things. You're connected with other people. Mm-hmm. There's something bigger than you out there. You are not alone. All of this, it was the bigger voice that allowed me to take my little voice, to make my little voice more encouraging. That said, hey, if you're going to talk to yourself, you need to say, hey, you're all right. You're good. You're okay. You're as good as anybody else. You think positively. How can you help somebody else? All these little things that we tell ourselves. We have to watch we have to watch that little voice and what we're actually saying to ourselves, because it's really important, because you get in these patterns with that little voice of a sort of negative thinking and telling yourself things that aren't necessarily true. Because the truth is, of the bigger voice, is that you are a good person, and that you do belong here, and that you are good, and that whatever you pursue is worthwhile. That's the big voice that tells you, hey, let that little voice be more positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. That is, I got to say, that's the voice in my head has been that same journey, right? Very loud. At one point, very loud in an encouraging way, or I can do anything way, and then all of a sudden I hit this point of very critical. And it was great. And then it just kind of spiraled, but then I was able to turn the volume down through a series of classes and awareness. And
that's right.
I think one of the reasons that I'm actually doing this podcast is to help people recognize that little voice is in there, right? And that when you look at people from the outside, you look at them at LinkedIn and you meet them, you think, oh, they got it all figured out and they know what they're doing. And yet you find out they're doing the exact same thing you are, which is going through life, experiencing life, trying new things, being curious, and hopefully having fun, right?
That's
but
right.
sometimes
That's right.
I don't know, we have this, we have to prove ourselves, I guess.
Well, the other thing about that little voice is that little voice is often a manifestation of voices that we've heard in our lives, whether that's our parents, our siblings, our friends, whatever. So sometimes you can't listen to that story that somebody else has told you. You know, somebody else may have told you a negative story and you believed it. And so you go through life sort of with that little voice telling you what a parent said that, and your parents may be very loving, but at one point somebody said, hey, you're no good, or you're not smart, or whatever they said, or that painting is not very good. And you took that as the truth and they kept telling yourself that, and that was a little voice. So extremely important to surround yourself with people that encourage you too, and that are telling you things that are positively constructive, that are good about yourself. You want to surround yourself with positive people that love you, that encourage you, and in turn, you want to be that person to other people. Be encouraging, be loving, so that their voice in their head, that's what they hear.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's very powerful. Maybe this needs to be our ending point.
Sure. I could talk forever with you.
I know, well, I could too. I could
really
just keep going because I just
yeah.
look at this and go, oh, well, then I could ask him this and I could ask him
Sure.
that. So we'll just go with one last question
Sure.
then. What would have been impactful for you when you think back, when you first moved to New York, let's say?
Mm-hmm.
What could someone maybe have coached you on or help, that I think would have really kind of unlocked some of this for you? I mean, when we look back now, it's so easy to kind of see things,
Mm-hmm.
but is there something that would have been helpful back then?
Yes. Probably when I was an actor and I was young, and very passionate about that, it would have been understand that you need to make a living at this, and that it's important to make a living and make resources so that you can continue to do the things that you need to do. So really look at the business side of the arts. Somebody could have expressed that and say, hey, you really need to concentrate. And maybe they did say that and I just didn't hear it. I was so focused on something else. That would have been extremely helpful. The other thing is really the big things that we need to do, that we need to hear. Be kind to people, help other people, be honest, be willing to do hard work, be open to possibilities. All of these things, that these big things that people say, oh yeah, that's cliche, they're really true. I mean, and when you bring those things into your heart and then ultimately into your head, that's what's really important. So those principles that we learned either from our parents or from television commercial or from wherever we learned, from church, from groups, from whatever it is, those are the things that you really need to hold true to yourself and hold true and be a good person and help other people.
Well said. Well said. If we could all start that way, continue that way, and end up that way,
right,
life would be, and the world would be a better place, right?
it really, I mean, when we learn it, and so many young people learn with that. Look at the Time Magazine's Person of the Year. So many people learn that at a young age, which is really awesome. The young is. People who embrace that. I wish, I mean, if I look back, I would have embraced that when I was younger, that I would have embraced this idea of being good and helping others and being kind to yourself and all of those things.
Yeah, kind to yourself and kind to others.
And
right?
kind to others.
But it is that kind to yourself because, back to the little voice, if we said what we say to ourselves to other people, we would not have any friends, right? I mean,
that's exactly it.
It's and no one would say those things to you. It is kind of odd that how that voice is.
That's right.
Unfiltered.
That's where we have to start. Love yourself, love others, know that you're not alone ever, and be productive in this world.
Well, awesome. That'll probably be my abstract that I write up about you when I publish your interview. So, Rob, thank you so much for sharing your story.
You are awesome, Kathy. Thank you.
And listeners, if you enjoyed today's interview, please subscribe and like this podcast. You can find the podcast on Apple and Google, which might be where you're already listening to it, but also on my website, lifestorycurator.com, which on my website you can post questions, comments. If you have a question or a comment for Rob, or if you have something for me that I should ask, maybe future interviews, I'm happy to oblige. So on that note, let's wrap up and have a great day.
Thanks, Kathy.